If you've been following Fallout 76 either through my coverage or just loosely from others, you probably know that the game has had some problems. Some of these are created by Bethesda themselves, either some of the bugginess of the game or patches reintroducing bugs, or even separately some others that are more joint situation, hackers developing hacks for the game and Bethesda not being super quick to ban or fix them. But I would argue that this time around, the problem we have, or the problem we're currently seeing with this game, may be one of the worst. It certainly has the highest potential, and even outside of just the core problem itself, there are several secondary effects, things currently going on right now that make this quite a bit more concerning. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about that, what in my eyes could become one of the biggest in-game problems for Fallout 76, which is actually saying quite a bit, especially with this game. Over Fallout 76's lifespan, there have been problems with malicious users. Exploiting has been around for a very long time. In particular, right around the game's release, it was pretty easy to use exploits. Many of these ended up getting patched out, but there's always been a back and forth lingering issue, in particular around duping. Duping particularly rare items and then selling them has proved extremely profitable to the tunes of thousands of dollars for some users. But separate from that, more recently, something we've started to see rise up with Fallout 76 is hacking. Not solely exploiting existing in-game mechanics, but rather using third-party software to do something. I've talked about in the past how this was a fairly prevalent issue in the Battle Royale mode of Fallout 76, as it is a prevalent issue in basically the Battle Royale genre. And although that still isn't fixed, it seems to have gotten at least somewhat better. There are still users actively hacking in that mode, but now, separately, the recent issue is more around the adventure mode, or really the most popular mode for Fallout 76. As recently, new tools have been released that give users the ability to do, well, a lot. For quite a while now, there has been a way to spawn in atomic shop items that from the in-game microtransaction shop. This is nothing new, frankly, but separately, it's not really that big of a deal. Oftentimes, these are just cosmetics, and Bethesda, of course, has been fairly quick to stop these accounts or ban them. Although with some more recent updates, there have been tools implemented to start spawning in just about any prop or item in-game, which is a little bit worse. It's how videos like this are made possible. Fallout 76 uses a lot of assets from Fallout 4. As such, you could spawn in the Pridwin, as it is in the files of Fallout 76. So if you see that in-game, it's not a cool new feature, a cool new quest, it's rather just somebody spawning that in. Or you might find the nuke effect just randomly flying around. But separately, of course, things like NPCs. The Scorchbeast Queen is possible to be spawned in and placed down at an inappropriate location, or even, which this part is fairly hilarious, Preston Garvey from Fallout 4, as he is also in the files. So although human NPCs are coming with Wastelanders, this isn't quite that. And in fact, you may see a bit more of Preston in the future, as one of the groups doing this did have some plans to send this to some major media outlets. Hopefully they get some better pictures than I did. But of course, to follow with that, what is probably the worst aspect of this is also items or item containers can be spawned in. For example, a container that has the plans for literally every item in game. The recent junk items that Bethesda gave out to users that lost junk as part of Fallout First, giving you a ton of every type of junk, although where this probably becomes the worst is legendary items. In the past, a lot of you guys reached out to me talking about how users had found ways to actually spawn in and create legendary items in Fallout 76. In the past, that wasn't true. You may have seen screenshots like this passed around, and in reality, even though it looks like a created legendary, this is actually just a test item from Bethesda. They couldn't create legendaries, they were just spawning in pre-created ones. Or at the very least, that was true, but now with one of the most recent updates to this tool, you are now able to manually create your own legendaries in Fallout 76. So you have some of the traditional stuff, creating a very powerful, very OP weapon. One of the popular uses of this is actually to create 5-star legendaries. 5-star legendaries are in the files of the game. They'll probably be a future feature, but at least as of right now, there's no legitimate way to obtain stuff like this. If you don't follow Fallout 76 all that closely, you may not realize how bad the legendary aspect of this is, but really the cornerstone of Fallout 76's economy are legendary items in game. People will play the game for hours on end just trying to get a rare or sought after legendary drop. Then they will trade that. Oftentimes users don't actually use caps anymore, but rather will just do barter trades with high tier legendaries. And as such, if people can start manually creating legendaries, especially rare ones, that would inflate the market, devalue some aspects of the economy. And to really just package this in one nice sentence, weapons. To clarify what exactly is happening here, now in Fallout 76, using third-party tools, users have the ability to place down almost any prop or NPC in the files of the game, but also create a weapon with custom legendary effects on it, or an armor with custom legendary effects on it. So naturally you could see how that can devolve into a fairly large problem in game, especially for an online game. So all of this is of course bad, but what makes this far worse is actually the timing of all of it. The legendary tool specifically only came out a couple of days ago. What also happened a couple of days ago? Well, one, there's a new dupe method found in game. So now let's say you're just a random dude that gets handed one of these really good weapons. Hypothetically, you could dupe this, making spread or just mass production of some of these items quite a bit easier. But separately, the worst part about it all is Fallout 76 is actually undergoing a free weekend right now. Now in game, it seems like these tools and the knowledge as to how to create some of these items isn't super pervasive. It's not like everybody is running around with super OP items, at least yet, but what it does mean is you could very easily set up an account that you will never use again, as quite literally all you need to play Fallout 76 right now is an email. As such, several users have taken to creating some of these items, things that may eventually get that account banned on accounts that they don't plan on keeping because they're never going to buy the game on it. So the fact that it's one, a free weekend, but two, also the new dupe method do make this quite a bit worse. But there's actually a little bit more, as Fallout 76 just received what was supposed to be its last update of the year. And even further, pretty similar to last year, Bethesda, many of the employees at that company will take a holiday break. That's pretty typical. Most companies, especially in the US, do that. So now there is a serious concern. Can they get this fixed, or will they get this fixed before the holiday break does begin, or will it persist over the holiday and not actually be fixed until one of the first or initial weeks in January, if even that soon? And the great irony of this is this basically happened already. Some of you guys might remember to the end of 2018, just a couple of months after Fallout 76 was released, there was a major duping problem. Back then it was a lot simpler, just duping rare items or armors, and a similar thing did happen then. Bethesda had a holiday break, duping ran rampant for several weeks until fixes were implemented towards the end of January and early February. But those critical fixes or improvements on in-game systems to limit or hamper duping didn't come till several weeks after they probably should have. So naturally many users are concerned we're going to see a similar problem this time around, although this time it has the potential to be quite a bit worse. Okay, so that is bad. I mean, I think we could pretty much all agree on it. I think there is a good discussion to be had about how much of this is Bethesda versus the community's fault, or really the malicious part of the community's fault, and I'll talk about that at the end. But what recourse is there? What realistically can Bethesda do? So seemingly with Fallout 76, they can track almost everything, which as far as I understand it is really the double-edged sword. Like as I mentioned before, illegally spawned in atomic shop items, or even separately from that, just recently people are spawning in holiday gifts and spreading them throughout the community, that before there was a legitimate way to actually earn those gifts, and in a figurative snap of their fingers, Bethesda wiped out all of those across basically every account. So for some of the crazy items like 5-star, or this item that has a ridiculous amount of stars, yeah, we'll probably see those items removed considering there's really no legitimate way to actually earn them. But there's also a problem with the fact that Bethesda's tracking so much that it's hard to actually make sense of it or sort through it all, or to systematically ban users that are doing something that they probably shouldn't be. But where to me this seems like it could be a much larger problem is with legitimate looking items. Like not a 5-star legendary, but just a relatively typical 3-star that happens to have the great combination, the golden trio of legendary effects that is going to fetch a very high price. Make a few of those, trade them from one account to then some legitimate users who are buying them, and can Bethesda actually track that item from one user to the next, to the next, to the next? And even if they can, are they going to actually wipe all of those items? In the past, they were very sparing with doing that, especially when users are spending legitimate caps on an item they may have not realized was illegitimately obtained. And although Bethesda did clear out certain items from certain characters and had fairly large ban waves for duping earlier in 2019, it's not like they removed all the duped items, especially weapons, and the Fallout 76 in-game economy definitely saw the impact of that. And you have to imagine as this does continue, as more items are created, more trades between one account to another, then even to a legitimate account, you will see this become an increasingly difficult problem to handle. And that's all without actually discussing the fact that Bethesda still has to actually kind of cut off the supply, stop the way of creating legendary items or spawning in certain props. But separate from all of that, I think there definitely is a discussion to be had around the fault of this. On one hand, it is pretty easy and almost natural to want to just jump at the people doing this, the hackers creating the tools, the hackers using the tools that were created by somebody else, although I'm not sure you would even refer to those people as hackers, as they're just following instructions. But at the same time, this does feel like partly or even mostly a Bethesda problem. Hacking is not new in this game, it's lingered, it's been around for quite a while at this point. I don't know the exact technical cause of this one, but to me, looking at all the things going on, it feels like there was finally somebody who put in some effort, maybe was particularly knowledgeable or talented in this area, creating tools for Fallout 76 that have a malicious use. But the reason this is possible does fall more on Bethesda. Even further, the reason things like this aren't impossible yet. It's not like this is all a brand new problem. As I mentioned before, some of these issues have lingered for a little bit now. I do hope this is resolved. Bethesda definitely still does have the chance at kind of turning this around, fixing some of these issues before they become too major, but based off what's happened in the past, I don't have a ton of confidence that that is the way this will play out. Either way, this is a story that I don't think will have a conclusion, at least anytime soon, and if anything, you'll probably start to hear quite a bit more around this. As I mentioned before, some of the groups doing this stuff, creating some of these items, did share plans about actually spreading this information, reaching out to news outlets, especially with pictures of Preston, although perhaps now that I mentioned that, it will be something else entirely. So you'll probably start seeing articles around some of these issues arise, and I just hope Bethesda is somewhat quick to start to address them. Either way, that is pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. Hopefully you guys found this video informative, but with that, I hope to see you all next time. Later.